Welcome to Petronoia, the podcast that cuts through the noise of the energy debate. Hosted by Dan Romito, this show takes complex energy issues, strips away the agendas, and delivers clear fact-based insights. Whether you're an industry expert or simply looking for a balanced perspective, Petronoia brings clarity to the conversation. Each episode, Dan breaks down key topics, from U.S. energy independence to global policy impacts, focusing on the facts rather than the rhetoric, helping listeners make sense of the energy landscape. This is Petronoia, where we separate fact from fiction to fuel-informed discussions.
Welcome to Petronoia. I'm your host, Dan Romito. I am sitting here with Marshall Dodson. He is the CEO of Key Energy Services. We spoke for like 2 minutes. Max. If it was that, it was probably like 30 seconds. I'm like, you'd be perfect. Yeah. Right? You'd be perfect. So maybe before we get into the state of the state and what's going on in the world, you have a fascinating story. You are, for all intents and purposes, a lifer that earned and worked his way up. So before I ruin it, would love to hear just the story of how you went from the young, inexperienced junior Marshall Dodson to now CEO of the company.
I have a lot of scars, and if I measure my age in time worked, I'm 80.
Okay.
But I actually one of the few native Houstonians see right in around. So I grew up here in Houston, and after high school went to the University of Texas.
Okay.
And then came back to Houston and started working for an accounting firm here called Arthur Anderson.
Okay.
And at Anderson at the time, you had energy and everything else.
Right.
So I went into energy, and I did that until there was a company here in town called Enron that kind of blew up.
Just that company.
Yeah. It blew up, and it took down Anderson. And at that point in my life, I was doing accounting, and I realized that if I wanted to stay doing that, I wanted control. I didn't want to. Right. I didn't want to work for a company that I didn't believe in and wasn't confident in. I didn't want to risk being assigned a company that didn't have that. So I went to a company called Dynegy, and that was the day I started at Dynegy. There was a above the front page above the fold article on Dynegy in the Wall Street Journal that then started a spiral. And anyway, that was fun with restructuring, investigations, and bankruptcy and near bankruptcy, and I learned at that point in my career that I'm trying to think exactly how he told it, but the interim CEO at one point told me, he said, accounting is fiction and cash is fact. And
it's not wrong.
No, it's not wrong at all. And so from that point on, it kind of gave me a much better appreciation on cash and the importance of generating cash in the business. And so got that one kind of right-sized. And then at the time, Key was delisted.
Okay.
Couldn't produce financial statements. And so ended up going to Key, and it was like, just go to West Texas for a few weeks and get things. We've got it all under control. It was about a year and a half.
A few weeks turned into a year and a half?
A few weeks to a year and a half in Midland. I lived at used to be the Hilton, and got the financials done and got relisted, and that was a fun experience ringing the bell at the NYSE, and then about a year or two later, the CFO at the time left. Okay. He also, when he joined, he said, I'm just going to be here temporarily. He was in 4 or 5 years, which was great. He was a great guy. I learned so much from him. And new CFO comes in, and I was kind of crispy on the accounting piece. I'd spent 10 years working on the same 3 years, it felt like. So he offered me a chance to be the treasurer. Okay. I did that for a couple years, and then moved into the CFO spot in 2013.
Okay.
So I was a CFO from 2013 until December of 2019.
Okay.
When we were going through our second bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And the business had been collapsing all throughout the year before. And we did a out-of-court restructuring in early 2020, where I was both the CFO and the CEO.
Okay.
So I was trying to get the business right and get things kind of going in the way I wanted to. And the board asked me if I would be the CEO. Since we were going through the restructuring, would you be the interim CEO? And I said, yes, but I'm not going to behave like an interim.
Right.
Like, there's things I want to do. I'd spent a few months as an interim CEO before, and so got through all that, and yeah.
So your consolation prize for becoming interim CEO was COVID?
Yeah, so that was actually, I'll never forget it, because we finished our bankruptcy and did the restructuring. I think it was a Thursday. Friday, my kids were leaving, the next week for spring break.
Yeah.
And, on that next Monday, the world stopped.
Right.
And where I thought we had a lot of cash, turned out to not be very much cash.
So you get out of bankruptcy and you're like, that wasn't terrible. I'm still alive.
Yeah.
And then 48 hours later, you're like, well, now we have to deal with COVID.
Yeah, pretty much the world
that's
stopped.
awesome.
And then oil went negative.
Yep.
We went from, I think our low point as a company, we were running like 120, 130 rigs at the time, and we got down to like 30. I think we had
You're like, why'd I take this job?
Yeah, no. Well, it was. I knew I could do it because it was all about managing cash.
Right.
Right. It was about ensuring that we had enough cash to make payroll, and then not letting anyone else at the company know how scared I was, which was easy during COVID because I didn't see anybody.
Right, because you're working from home. Right. Yeah. Like, you bring up an interesting point, and I'm going to go a little bit off the reservation on that, but the notion of cash management, it's something that we've been talking with a lot of people. Because there's like this new inflection point as it relates to like legacy ESG is probably dead. Some aspects of sustainability are still in. You have a new administration that hates wind and solar for a variety of different reasons. Capital discipline is first and foremost at every institutional investor's diligence list. But I think people are just, with all that noise being in place, I think people are just kind of scaling it back to like, where do we place capital in the most efficient place, and where can that earn us an attractive return, which is not a novel idea, but we did stray away from that.
Oh, I think we totally strayed away from it, and I think we strayed away from it. But I think during certain boom times, people stray away from it as well.
Right.
We saw that with the shale boom.
Right.
I just read a fascinating book called Cattle Kingdom,
and
it's about the growth of the cattle business,
right.
And how everything came together. But again, it was another big capital boom, right? With tons of money being raised, tons of money being spent, and at the end of it, everybody's bankrupt.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's like everyone's private jet turns into their sort of demise, right? The other thing too, I mean, we're having this conversation with a lot of just people, particularly here at Thrive. This stuff really isn't that hard. Like, we're entering this new digital economy. Everyone agrees that mostly data centers are a net positive, but you bring up a good point. Like, there's this notion of like labor shortage, which is critical. And then there's also this point of, well, where are we going to spend our money so that we can meet incremental demand? And once again, that's not that controversial of a concept, but I think people are struggling to acknowledge that, like, hey, you know what? It's probably natural gas. We got to figure out how to scale nuclear, throw in some geothermal or sprinkle in some geothermal, whatever you want to say. And then in terms of the labor, like, we have to convince people that this industry is going to be around for the foreseeable future. Is that right?
No, we operate in California, and I mean we operate in Texas, California, North Dakota, Montana, kind of all those areas, and the labor situation in North Dakota was great. And my joke is Gavin Newsom's the best thing that happened to the North Dakota oil field because everybody went there to find work. But when we had more business there, it was really hard to recruit an 18-year-old into the oil field if they weren't from Kern County, because everything they learned was that it's evil, it's bad, and it's going away. Right. And the reality is, other than whale oil, humanity has used more energy of whatever source it is over time. We burn more wood today than we did 200 years ago. Right. Like, so the notion that it's going to end and it's going to go down, I always found just crazy.
Do you find that narrative improving though? Like, are people connecting the dots between, hey, we have the most energy intensive apparatuses mankind has ever seen, and hey, natural gas is probably going to be the fuel that facilitates that?
I don't know if people get that broadly. There's really no other way.
Right.
You can't. I mean, my thinking about, your chat GPT just goes away because the wind stops blowing. That doesn't work.
Right. I couldn't make cool memes anymore.
Yeah. And nuclear's a decade off, if that. So
right.
There is no alternative other than gas.
Right, by default. And luckily for us, it is a decarbonizing fuel. And so I was having this debate with somebody. I would put them in the detractor camp, for lack of a better word. And when you get them to just explain like why they feel wind and solar could be the base load source to fuel the data center, their argument just falls apart in 30 seconds.
And it would take up... One of my frustrations with a lot of the ESG was the only E that mattered in ESG was emissions.
Right.
The environment part fell away.
Right.
But I don't know if you've seen a big solar farm. I don't know if you've seen what's happened to wind turbines. I had a debate with someone who lives in Austin, and he was we just need wind turbines. I was like, well, when you put a wind turbine up in Terrytown, you can talk.
Right.
Right. Which would never happen.
Right. Yeah, we did, when I was at Pickering, we didn't know, right? We were, if everyone's saying is wind is so amazing, we're like, okay, well, let's actually do the math. And I think the math, and I'm going to be off by a couple acres, but for every wind turbine, you need 18 acres of land and a ridiculous amount of concrete. Mm-hmm. And people were not connecting the dots that not only was this stuff manufactured in China and shipped over in diesel ships, concrete is incredibly emissions intense. And, oh, by the way, you're taking up 18 acres per gigawatt. Right. And so if you're going to facilitate or meet the energy demands purely by wind, you're going to need North Dakota, South Dakota, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. I don't think we're going to be doing that.
It was at one of the, I think it was the first Annual Energy Partners events they did in Telluride.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the gentleman's name. I want to say something. Michael. Anyway, he had just had a piece in the Wall Street Journal about some of the challenges to do that, and he ended up speaking at that event. And he was the first person to the cocktail reception. I was a second, and it was.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, it was fascinating talking to him because basically he went through and he was like, the math doesn't work.
Right.
Right. Like we've been mining copper for all of humanity, just
right.
about, and we're mining less and less.
Right.
Energy to do it. The yellow iron, it has to be built to do the mining, to get the materials. It's impossible.
Right. Yeah, once again, we can harp on this forever. What I tell people is like, this is not calculus, this is second grade math, right? This is really easy to understand. The other component that we were talking about before we started filming, the impact of AI. There is a contingent of people, and look, they have really good rationale. It's not like they're neurotic about it, but they think that the emergence of AI resembles more of like the T-1000 coming to get us from Terminator 2, and we need John Connor to come save us. Sounds like you have a different take.
Yeah, no, I'm going to take the over on humanity, on human ingenuity, on capitalism, and the magic that is the United States of America. I see it as not something that replaces but enhances. And so we were talking earlier, like if you think about the world today and the way we live and the way we get from point A to point B, right? We could walk, right? We could, and then people started taking horses and wagons and now cars, and so hydrocarbons and energy have enhanced the human body and muscle, right? Like if we didn't have cranes and forklifts, everything around us would have to have been lifted up by hand, right? But our human abilities are leveraged by the internal combustion engine and hydrocarbons, and I think AI is going to do the same for our brains and our thought process, and not and enhance what we can do.
Are you guys doing anything in particular with AI?
We're using it in a couple of different ways. We're working on a tool for our guys in the field that will enhance their ability to work safely and do a great job for our customers, and kind of name the project after one of our longtime employees who knows more about workover and downhole and rigs than anybody else. And the vision is like, okay, well, what if Bob is on location?
I was going to say, is it like Project Bob?
Yes, we call it Ask Bob. I'm like, what if Bob is with every crew when they're getting ready to go to work, and can ensure that he's asking the questions about how they're going to get hurt and give them the answers on ways to mitigate that and this and that and this and that. And so, we're going down that path. We kind of have got to the first stage and we're training it. But it's really hard to train. Right. It hallucinates. It makes stuff up. It gives wrong answers. It gives too much information.
It sounds like a teenager.
It is a teenager. And it also is really hard, particularly in the oil field, because we call the same thing something different in North Dakota, in West Texas, and South Texas. So everything, heck, even on the customer side, every well has two names. Right. Like everything has multiple names. And so teaching it the lingo, getting through, we have a rig, we rig up different equipment, has been challenging. But we've got a lot of people who are investing their time to train it. And so I think it's going to be really cool when it comes out, because it's going to, be a resource tool to help and educate them do a better job.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I'm more of a net positive or net optimist, I should say, on the AI thing. When I do talk to younger people, they think it's their demise, right? But there's also a component to like the younger workforce, which I think there just has to be much more of an acknowledgement how like it really works in the real world. Do you see some of the same anxieties with your younger employees, or?
No, they're much more open to using technology. I think when you were talking about it, I think about, my kids are new in the workforce, and my daughter who works in data and has computer science and finance background. She asked me today, she was like, Dad, use AI to do your job. And I was like, well, they kind of pay me for the HI. Right. But, she's telling me how she's using different tools to do her work. I think about my son who's in sales has used it to automate, sending, notices to clients about things. Like they're taking it to be more productive. Right.
Yeah, that's sort of the observation I have is actually in sort of an ironic sense, AI is going to give more efficiencies that will supply younger people with just more time, right? That research project or that big project is not going to take 2-3 days to accumulate all the data and all the analysis and all that. It's like it's at your fingertips and you can talk to it.
I do worry that it's going to impact the training that you get when you're young, when you're doing things. Right. Like I think about the way we all came up, which was building models or researching subjects, or if you're a lawyer, writing documents. Right. That goes away.
And experiencing sort of the I'll call it adversity because it's a PG show, but we all screwed up and we had that guy or that boss just light you up, and then you made sure that never happened again.
I will age myself. I started working before laptops were like readily handed out, and we did big spreadsheets by hand, and I changed the way I read a 7 because he added it up like a 2.
Right.
I got yelled at.
Your funky handwriting didn't work.
I now do the 7 with a line through.
Yep. From a macro perspective, like what are some of the trends, high level, that you see having the most positive influence on the energy sector?
I think we're getting a realization that, and you can see it in Wall Street and equities, that this industry is not going away. Right. I think back a few years ago, we were working on something and tried to raise some funds into like 27 different institutions, and all of them were like, nope, you're going away. And it's like, no, we're not. Right. I think if there's something that is truly important, it's that has the realization that what we do in the traditional oil and gas business is going to be needed, for decades and decades.
Yeah, I was relieved. I tell this story. I've said it a couple times on the show, but we were talking to an investor. This is like 22, and they were providing the thesis with why they think that oil and gas was going to be, as they put it, sunset. Like that was like sort of the, politically correct tech.
No terminal value.
Yeah, you have no terminal value. You're going to sunset. And look, it was very well thought out. It just wasn't idealistic. To me, it didn't make any sense, but you could tell that they did the work, so to speak. And then I was like, "Are you sure?" And he's adamant, yes. And then we had the same conversation in last year, and the same guy goes, "You know, natural gas is actually fascinating. We love natural gas. Like we're all in." And off there, I was sort of busting his chops. I'm like, "Remember what we said like 3 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Remember what we said 3 years?" Like, "Yeah, we were wrong. We were wrong." Do you? And I haven't necessarily had that many conversations on like the energy expansion, the energy transmission, but your conversations with investors, have they changed over the last year? Is there more of an optimism? Like, what do you guys do and how do you do it? Or what's the nature of those conversations?
Well, we've gone private, so I talk to our investors and owners every day, but I still talk to the crowd around here.
Yeah.
You know, and I think one of the more fascinating things to me is how many of those investors are here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if you think about this event 3-4 years ago, there was nobody here. Right. You know, talk to they're like, yeah, we got 7 buy side.
Right.
Okay. Right. But they're roaming all over.
Yeah. What's your optimism on sort of the regulatory market and how that dust will sort of settle? Is that something that you guys are like, look, either way we're going to stay as immune as possible, or is there something on the regulatory front that you're constantly keeping your pulse on?
Yeah, no. With us, I mean, we're a service, a land service business, right? And it's kind of like the administration and the regulations that really doesn't impact onshore oil and gas production,
right?
Federally, some of the state requirements definitely do, but no, outside of California, we're not really very tightly regulated.
How do you navigate California, right? I mean, everyone I've talked to, it's such a headache and a head scratcher to them. And I'm not saying they're going to give up, but like in terms of navigating that landscape, like just with whatever you're comfortable with, like highlighting, like how do you even deal with that?
It's been a challenge, but we have some fantastic people in California, and the industry has some fantastic people. But there's nothing easy. One of the first things I took as like a growth initiative to our board as CEO was investing in more cementing equipment to plug abandoned oil.
Right.
I'm like, if there's one thing in California that I think is going to be steady and grow, it's plugging wells. No, even that's hard.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the state has made that very difficult to do. It makes it hard for our customers to get permits.
Right.
And then the regulations that we have to go through, well, instead of self-certifying, you have to have somebody from the state come by and do that. But they don't have enough people to do that.
Right.
So you sit and wait.
When you say you sit and wait, like on average, how long are you waiting?
I couldn't.
Is it days or is it months?
I think it can be it would be more days kind of thing.
Good Lord. Okay. And then, like, what if you had a crystal ball and you said, is California going to double down on sort of what they do now, or are they going to come to their senses and reverse course? Like, how do you?
My belief is that there will be oh crap moment.
Yeah.
Right.
That's usually how it works.
And at that point, they will come to the realization that they need production in state, and that they will get a new administration because no one wants to pay $10 to fill up a gallon to fill up their car, right? Or they will quietly just back off, and they will say, "Please go get this oil in the tanks," because they can only take so much. They can only bring in so much oil off the tankers. Right. And then when you look at what's happening with all the refineries being shut down.
Or leaving.
Yeah.
I personally thought that when Valero was said in so many words, "Thank you, we're leaving," I thought that was going to be so
I think
what else could it possibly be?
Well, once that translates to $10 a gallon, I think people will take notice. Right.
Interesting. If you had the Marshall Dodson crystal ball, right? Because clearly you didn't see bankruptcies and COVID.
No.
Just kidding. What are the top 3 things that are top of mind that you are keeping your pulse on in terms of running your company over the next 3 years?
Well, I think demand for what we do is going to grow.
Yeah.
I think the commodity price, particularly oil, is going to increase. The natural gas demand will increase. Unfortunately, that does not take a lot of drilling rigs or workover rigs or anything else.
Right.
You can get a lot. But really what's going on with labor is a big focus.
Can you quantify or just provide perspective on how big of an issue that is? I think people hear labor shortage and they're like, well, how hard can it get to people? And you're actually...
So I was talking to someone about it, and I said, look, Gen Z is Gen Z, whether it's white collar or blue collar. Right. And the work we do in the oil field is hard work. Right. There's no doubt about that. You're up early, you're home late, it's hot, it's cold, it's outdoors, and you need a mechanical aptitude. Right. And with the way people are coming up today, there's not much of that. And then broadly, because we've been down for so long, the premium that people used to get to work in the oil fields is kind of gone.
Yeah.
It's still a well-paying, really good job, but it used to be a great job. Yeah. And there was a premium to work in the oil field that in a lot of cases it's not there anymore.
Okay. Do you think it will come back, or is it's sort of settled where it's at?
Come back as demand comes back.
Right.
I think we've been. I'm not a believer in peak oil, but I am a believer in peak oil at certain prices.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've been in this for a long time. 15 years ago, nobody talked about inventory.
Right.
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 That just wasn't talked about. Right. Today, everybody talks about how much inventory do you have left in your inventory runway. Right. Which to me, again, comes from that low terminal value mindset and the realization that there is a boatload more oil that can be gotten, just not at $65.
Right.
When you look at inflation adjusted, oil prices today, ridiculously cheap.
Right. It is. That's the big thing that people also overlook, is that when they hear a certain dollar amount, they immediately assume that it's expensive, just because of the nominal amount, and then you have to sort of talk them back off the ledge. You're like, actually, it's really, really...
Yeah, if we were to fill this up with oil, this bottle of water would cost money.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And the next big thing in terms of... maybe this is an unfair question. Everyone is AI hyperscalers. To me, it's sort of drowning out everything else. Like, do you think there's an emerging trend about to come online?
I guess one of my concerns as you talk about AI hyperscalers is I question how they're going to get a return on the $1 trillion they put in capital out there. Right. Because my daughter will make a funny video of the dog singing when it's free.
That's a big thing now. That's actually coming up. People send me 4 or 5 of those things.
So it costs her nothing to do that.
Right.
But if she was charged $100, I guarantee she wouldn't do that.
Right.
If she was charged $5, maybe she would, but probably not.
Yeah.
Right. And so at some point, I just question where the returns are going to come from. Because it to me looks like a lot of the gold rushes we've seen in the past. Right?
Yeah.
Where capital floods in, investors trip over themselves to throw money at something.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, the only ones who make money are management and some of the vendors, and all the equity, gets a goose egg.
Right. Yeah, it is interesting. You bring up a really good point with, I'm a big ChatGPT and Claude, and you can pay for the ChatGPT subscription, but I think it's like $20 a month. Anyway, it's marginal. It's not, if it were me, right, over the course of time, I can easily envision a scenario where they're charging per search, right? Because number one, that will regulate its usage, and that will obviously have an impact given supply and demand. But then just from conspiracy theory Dan and cynic Dan says, why is this so cheap? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Remember how cheap Uber was at first?
How cheap what?
Uber was
at
first?
Exactly.
Right.
So
I think it's cheap because they're in gold rush land grab mode.
Yeah.
And then at some point, someone's going to say, hey, you just spent $1 trillion. How are we going to get, where's the return?
Right.
Right. And then that's when the pricing starts. That's also, we go back to gas. One of the things that I question and think about is the pricing on that relative to the cost of power,
right,
and then ultimately the cost of compute. Because I would bet that the cost of compute probably doesn't work if gas is $7 a net.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's governors on that that I don't think people would really factor into their math. I think,
which more importantly too, sorry to cut you off, but that narrative in terms of connecting the dots is also something that the general public probably wouldn't even take the time to piece together. Not at all. we need to go to happy hour.
Absolutely.
So I can't tell you enough. This was great. You were a last-minute addition. You knocked it out of the park.
This is my second impromptu Thrive podcast, so it's becoming a tradition.
We're going to have to do it next time, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Marshall. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.